Mixed Media Gaming.
Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Argument with Reddit segment of the Mixed Media Podcast. We'll be doing gaming today. We just finished talking about the CIA, or not necessarily CIA specifically, but information laundering in general. If you don't know what that is, perfect. You can watch the previous episode on information laundering that Irving did, and as it relates to, as it will relate in the as part of the series that leads up to the CIA. And who is it? The CIA, and who are you relating to?
What did Hitchcock know about the CIA? That'll be the title.
Yeah, that's all right. So yeah, if you want to keep up with the series, you want to get to that end point about what Hitchcock knew about the CIA. Probably want to watch that episode to get some much needed info that will probably be used later. So but for now, we'll be doing the gaming segment of the Mixed Media Podcast.
And unfortunately, Ben is messed up in this view too, so I'm gonna have to fix that in a second.
Oh, I can't actually see that myself. Oh yeah, it is messed up.
Had a lot of problems with me today, huh?
Just a little bit. While Nathan's responding, I'll fix your layout, but you get to see how my thing works with the absent stuff in the meantime. All right, so I'll pull up the first one. This one is from Producer Wife. Producer Wife is my wife, if anyone thinks that sounds weird. I always forget some people might not know what I'm talking about. So the title of this one says, for most people, gaming PCs are a waste of money. And there's a whole bunch of detail here. It says, I have a gaming PC myself, and I'll admit that it's cool. However, I just don't see the point in dropping thousands on a rig when you can get a PS5, I assume is what that says. Sorry, it's a little tiny on my screen. Or Xbox Series X, which I both own, that can play games almost as well as the great performance and graphics for $500. And you can read the rest, I guess, or Nathan, if you want to read the rest, up to you.
I think there's certainly space for both PC and consoles. I would say that most people who buy gaming PCs probably wasted their money, actually. Either the fact that they should have just gotten a console instead, or they shouldn't just not have gotten a PC that's just that beefy. It was not necessary, that expensive. So I think, generally I would say console is a bad deal. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, but it's so cheap, right? $500 and you want to buy a gaming PC that performs as well, you have to pay a lot more than $500. Well, okay, that's especially true more now than ever, given that hardware prices are extremely high. But I'm going to assume we're not talking about this era, because it's hard to talk about this era. So talking about when a couple of years ago when prices were, I guess, what we consider normal. Yeah, it was still the case that gaming PCs were more expensive than their console counterparts for the performance. However, at least until towards the end of the console life cycle, when their consoles are really getting old and they're about to release the next ones. The thing is, the upgradability is quite nice and will save you money in the long run, right? So you buy a PS5 now, a couple of years down the line, you buy a PS6, it's going to cost you more than buying a game PC and probably just replacing the graphics card and being up to par with the PS6. And as well, you also get a whole host of other things other than being able to use your computer for things other than gaming. I know PS5, it's becoming more like a computer every day. You might be able to do things like, can you watch YouTube on a PS5? I wonder. I feel like that's something that should be possible. I don't know if it is though. But if it is, you could. I still, you don't have the wide range of options with PC. Where the point of it is that it's a general purpose computer, right? You can do a general variety of things. You're not locked into a specific category of things. As for you see people buy their $1,200 game PCs just to play Minecraft. That is I don't know, dude. I feel like certain PC gamers is a stain on the image of other PC gamers. It's so odd. I feel oh, you have to buy a $1,500 game PC. It's you don't have to. It's just people do that because they're weird. I don't know why. I think a lot of people just don't know. They're oh, let me get the latest and greatest CPU. It's wow, that's gonna get you 0 FPS. You're not gonna increase your FPS on that pretty much. Obviously, it's a minimum CPU threshold power you need, right? At some point, a CPU just starts becoming more and more relevant, and GPU becomes the relevant part. You're never going to be CPU bound usually, pretty much what I'm saying. I remember back when computer prices were more reasonable, I would used to recommend people get the 3200G CPU. It costs $100. It was a 4-core, I believe. I don't believe it was. I think it was. I don't think there was any SMT in it. So just 4 threads, I think, at a reasonable clock speed, and it came with an integrated GPU that you could use for. Now, that's not great, right? Given that it has an integrated GPU, but if you didn't have the money now, you can upgrade it later, add a GPU later. If you want to add a GPU now, that's fine. The CPU is perfectly fine on its own. It's $100. But sometimes these people buying like $150 CPUs, I'm like, why? I mean, this makes a lot of sense if your concerns are things outside of gaming. But if you're literally just trying to do simple schoolwork, simple work, right? General stuff, surfing the web, watching videos, and gaming, you do not need anything greater than 3200G, probably. I have one that's better, is a better CPU because I do 3D modeling and stuff like that. And I use my CPU for ray tracing, which a lot of people be like, oh, that's gross. That's just how it is, man. Sorry. So yeah, I built my computer to be with the knowledge I wouldn't have CUDA on my computer, so I wouldn't be able to do any GPU ray tracing in Blender. I mean, a lot of people might think you don't do ray tracing with CUDA. I mean in Blender, not in video games where you use they call it ray tracing cores. But in Blender, you would use CUDA cores to do ray tracing. So I built my computer as a CPU-focused computer because I knew I wouldn't have an NVIDIA GPU, so I wouldn't have any CUDA cores. And then I got a processor that might have cost like $170 or something like that. I don't remember. But I would not recommend that for the average gamer. Right now what I have is a RX 590 as my GPU. I can't remember how much that cost at the time. It's quite some time ago. It was like 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So I don't know. Maybe it's not a lot of time. But it still works. It still runs I have a monitor that's 144 FPS, 1440p. I run everything max settings at 144 FPS, 1440p almost always. So I do not regret at all having not bought a better GPU. So yeah, I think most people's gaming PCs are a waste of money. I think they can oftentimes just be cheaper. But I also do see the need for gaming PCs as opposed to consoles. And also Ben is sideways currently.
Sorry, I was I was noticing it's like very unstable with me holding it in my hand, which I have to do because how the charging cord is. I tried to lay it on its side, but I guess that doesn't work.
I see. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is if you need a good PC right now, you actually are forced to buy probably the best PC you could possibly buy right now before the prices go up even further. And that's if you need it. So, the inflation on these parts is so bad that my computer has appreciated, and it's like 2 years old, which is insane. Like I could sell my used CPU for a profit, and that makes no sense to my mind, but that's the reality of the situation with these PC parts. And so, yeah, I also, as well, when I built my PC, I went with a CPU-focused thing as well because I'm an editor. And I'm so glad I overbuilt it a little bit because I would not be able to... I would have had to upgrade my graphics card by now if I didn't go a little bit more expensive to be able to do flight sim stuff. And I would not have just... here's my joystick here, if you want to see. And I would not have been able to do that at all if I didn't just spend that little extra up front. And it's not like I knew this was going to happen back then, but if I needed it, it would be very bad right now. So, yeah. All right. Next one. So this one is from yourself.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I didn't realize you put it up on the screen. I was looking away. It says, it's titled, What makes action seem more satisfying, posted on r/game-dev, so obviously within the context of games. We all know about camera shakes, sound design, vibrations, etc. What small detail do you notice in your game or others that really satisfy you? For me, it's a certain pistol in Mass Effect 2, blah, blah, it gives an example. I'm going to give you, this might be depressing for some people, I'm going to give you the abridged version of a GDC talk here, because it's something people might not know of if they haven't looked it up, what makes these things feel satisfying. But if you looked it up, you already know. It's like one of those things where you only watch it. I say this because I used to binge watch GDC talks a lot. So at some point, you're bound to find these things about like what makes action satisfying and stuff like that. So here's what they'll tell you in a GDC talk. I'll save you the time of watching anything related to this topic. Essentially, what they'll say is, so a lot of it's about the animation. If it's something that like the action is something that has an animation that you can see, right, which is probably most action. So if it's something like imagine like a punch, for example, having things like sort of this is actually it's not even game specific. This is general animation. Everyone might know it because it's from movie stuff. These are general animation sort of principles. So that if you want to make something more impactful, you give it some frames of wind up, and then instead of like just being like, imagine like a punch, right? The person's winding up a little bit. Even it might be excessive and like unrealistic. This is something you might see in cartoons a lot, where a character will wind up more than is like realistically possible or normal, expected, and that sort of gives it I guess a greater gravity to it. I don't know if you call it satisfying, but it certainly gives it a greater weight. It makes it feel like it's more being done. And
that's what 909 Crime in the chat says. She says responsiveness, immersive weight.
Yeah, okay, pretty much, exactly, yeah. They already mentioned sound design, so I was going to say that, but yeah, that's one of the things. Things like sound, but a lot of things that people don't know about are things like post-processing effects. Oftentimes, the game might change the brightness of the screen temporarily, or change the contrast. If you're talking about like an impact, for example, sometimes you might have the world get a bit darker at the moment of impact, and then immediately get back to its original brightness. That's effect is pretty noticeable. I can't think of. Certainly, there are games like this. I just can't think of them. But games where you pick up certain items, they'll make the screen brighter temporarily. People might have noticed that, like really quick, like a flash of brightness. It's obviously noticeable. It's not subtle at all. I just can't think of a game that does that. But that's certainly not something that's incredibly uncommon. You can use those kind of tricks for impacts and other action that you might want to seem satisfying. Along with animation, you might want to give things a bit of like sometimes games have a sort of like a freeze frame. If something is hit, the thing will sort of be frozen for a few extra frames, than it should be. It should be immediately move or whatever. I don't necessarily do that. This once again applies to more cartoony sort of games. So I can think of like fighting games, for example, like Guilty Gear or something like that. They do that kind of stuff. But this can definitely be applied to. I'm thinking of one of the Batman games, maybe multiple, do that, where everything sort of freezes for a bit of time when something gets hit. Yeah, that's the original GDC talk. That's probably what you'll hear. Hear them say.
Yeah, I was gonna say also for me, like the camera work is a huge deal. It's like for me the thing that makes things feel the most immersive is dynamic camera work and like beautiful sound engineering. Bro, the sound engineering definitely is much more important than the camera work actually. In terms of immersion, when you can just sit your character down for a moment and just listen, and it feels like there's an actual world out there, it's definitely unique, And then like with the camera work, I think the game that really like brought that to my attention was Last of Us. Like in the middle, yeah, in the middle of the action, we're having like beautiful camera work, but it's dynamic in a way that's like surprising because where you're going to be in the scene is not predictable. You know what I mean? Obviously, because I get to choose where I'm walking. If I'm in the middle of combat, I get to choose how I'm doing the combat. But the game is doing this crazy dynamic camera work that like accentuates everything I'm doing and makes sense inside the space. And it makes it oddly feel extremely immersive, even though it's a third-person game.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of this stuff, for sure, is like stuff you would find in like books or lectures or whatever, talks on movies and shows and stuff like that, and I don't know what you call them, predefined visual mediums, like things where what's going to happen is known, and trying to incorporate that somehow. If it's like a cutscene, obviously everything's predefined, so you can incorporate that into your game. But it's not a cutscene; it's something like you're talking about, dynamic areas in The Last of Us. Then you can also try to find a way to try to encourage the camera to go in ways that you would like and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's it for that. Is there Is there a hot take in the audience, or Ben, do you have a spontaneous hot take? Okay.
No, I don't. My knowledge of video games is not good enough for me to come up with something off the top of my head.
We've got to fix that. We've got to get Ben a gaming PC, and got to get Ben on the train. 909 Crime says, y'all ever play Ninja Garden, Sigma, or Bayonetta? Even though they're real different games, the controls are very well done. When I'm playing, sometimes I figure out new combos just from playing the game. And then a hot take from the audience from 909 Crime is, more games need difficulty sliders.
I think I talked about difficulty sliders at some point. Yeah. It's an episode called is that something to do with accessibility? But essentially what I said was something about like, is that the idea of that topic episode spawned from me watching a GDC, not a GDC normal talk. It was like a GDC podcast thing they were doing. I only ever watched that one and stopped in the middle of it because I didn't like it. But it was something about like, I was talking about accessibility, and I think I stopped listening because they were talking about something about like difficulty modes. I think they were like making it so like generic, like they were essentially like putting one big blanket statement over all games, saying like they all need easy difficulties and stuff like that. I said no, pretty much. I think it's what I said in that episode. Yeah, if you look up the episode title is Why Gaming Accessibility is Complicated. Episode number 27. This is back when our format was older, so it looks dank, but yeah, but what is that? Wow, we have come a long way. That is.
Look at what I look like and have looked like throughout this show today. So
I'm looking at like there's like a low quality like mixed media logo where our like normally our like topic thing is like little square, but it's like the resolution of the mixed media logo is low. I never noticed that. It's like not like high quality. It's very odd.
Incremental changes.
Yeah. I'll link the episode.
Awesome. Now I need everyone who's watching right now, smash the like button if it hasn't already been smashed. And I mean, the best thing you can do to help us out is to share anything about this podcast that you like. If there's any episodes that you like, if you like the whole channel, whatever you like, share it with your friends, your family who might enjoy it. That's the most important part, right? Like, so if you have an avid gamer, a musician, a filmmaker, anyone who might enjoy this, send it to them. That's the best thing you can do to help us out right now. And as we continue on this, and this was very fun. All right, so we'll see you next week at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday for a new episode of the Mixed Media Podcast, and we'll have a jolly good old time together in the chat. So I'll see you guys next week.
See you then.
Yep, thanks for watching and listening.
Bye.
Look, tell a man no trouble. I don't want beef, man. I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. Like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We pack, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on light. That way they know I'm more righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like Christ, no need for the hype or fight or telephone vipers. No need for the telephone vipers.